At the age of 5, when most of us are thinking about entering kindergarten, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart wrote his first piece of music. At the tender age of 8, he wrote his first symphony. His music during this period is better than 90% of the best work by mature composers, and he was just getting started. Genius comes in many forms. Some work and suffer hard to reach greatness, others are naturally born with it. Mozart was a natural. He was a prodigy. Making great music was as natural to him as a normal person rips a fart. He was said to be able to hear any tune just once and then be able to play it flawlessly. You would think a guy like this would be a stiff, stodgy intellectual with no sense of humor who took himself super seriously, but you'd be wrong. As a person, he was actually a man-child, a lot like Michael Jackson, a child in a grown man's body who never grew up. He loved telling jokes about farting, sex, and taking a dump. He actually wrote a song about an actual literal butt, and was said to keep a journal for chronicling his farts. He kinda reminds me of Goku, if Goku was a composer instead of a fighter. He loved wine, women, and song. As a young boy, he was already a star, and his dad, a composer in his own right, used to parade him around like a circus sideshow. His dad was obviously conflicted. On one hand, he was extremely proud of his son, but at the same time, he was also jealous of him, because he was better than his dad as a mere boy than his dad ever was as an adult. And because of his strict upbringing, the relationship between them was strained. Sadly, he was a genius, but he had no common sense. He couldn't hold his liquor, and he was always broke because of his habit of spending money like it was going out of style. Towards his later years, he met Salieri, who before Mozart arrived was the greatest composer of his time. Mozart, with his immature, childlike attitude, surpassed him easily, and Salieri was filled with a jealous rage, and he poisoned him to death. Nah, just kidding. That never happened. It's a great legend, though, and it's the basis for a classic but extremely historically inaccurate movie called Amadeus, which you should see immediately. But it wasn't true at all. The truth is, Salieri was far from the best composer at the time. Actually, Haydn was before Mozart surpassed him, and he and Mozart were pals. Salieri openly admired Mozart, and they were friendly associates, if not necessarily out-and-out friends. But it's a legend that people still believe to this day. Mozart's last work was the classic Requiem. A requiem is literally funeral music, or music to be played at funerals, and Mozart's is probably the most celebrated one ever written, though I actually prefer Fauré's Requiem. Anyway, in an ironic twist, Mozart was writing the Requiem when he died and never finished it. Mozart's traditional style was lively and happy, much like the man himself, but this was much more mature, which makes me think that perhaps he was maturing in his musical style before he died. This, by contrast, was dark and solemn. Many believed that Mozart, who was in ill health from wild living, knew he was dying and decided to write his own funeral music. Mozart, without a doubt, was one of the 3 greatest composers who ever lived. Some have even said he was the best, though I prefer Beethoven by a small margin. There's no doubt that had he lived past 35, he would have been the all-time champ. He was able to take any genre and just naturally be great at it. In many ways, he was the most naturally talented musical individual who ever lived.